Stitch People. I am so excited for this week's episode. We are interviewing Jenn Brandt, the beautiful, the wonderful, the legendary Jennifer Brandt. She is a member of the Stitch People team. I would love for all of you to get to know the Stitch People team as much as you know and love one another in the Stitch People community. And Jenn is just a crown jewel. She is a gem of a person. She is a ray of sunshine. And I can't wait for all of you to get to know her a little bit through this interview. We had so much fun talking. We cover everything from Disney to sort of life and religion and politics and everything you're not supposed to talk about. It is a really great conversation. It is a joy to speak with her. It's a pleasure to be her friend and a true delight. I can't wait for you to get to know her better as well and to just love and appreciate her as much as I do. So without further ado, let's jump in. Welcome, Jenn, to the Stitch People podcast.
Lizzy, it's great
Thank
to
you.
be here.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Thank you for being willing to chat. I feel very strongly that just as much as we should get to know members of the Stitch People community, I would love members of the Stitch People community to not only get to know each other, but also get to know the Stitch People team. Because, surprise, surprise, I too only have 24 hours in a day and am not capable of doing everything that Stitch People requires without a really strong and supportive and wonderful team. So I'd love to, shine the spotlight on over there.
Well, to be honest, we wouldn't be such a great team without a great leader.
Oh, that's nice.
We love you so much.
That makes me feel like a double chin. But thank you.
You're
very nice. You're very nice to say that. So Jenn, tell us about yourself. How would you describe yourself as a person?
I would describe myself as, it's hard to think of like all the things that come to your mind first to say, and then be like, let me filter that into, I'm a very, I'll just say I'm a joyous pessimist. I think that's
a joyous pessimist.
That's like the best description of me. Like I
love
am
it.
Bubbly and happy and all the things, but then I think of all the things that could go wrong in the same time frame.
How fascinating. I like that because I would say I actually kind of relate with that. I generally am an optimist, but yeah, my bubbly personality is often infused with a good dose of reality and nihilism. For me, it's nihilism, less pessimism and more just like, well, nothing matters and we're all going to die. So,
It's okay. It's fine.
So it's okay. It really takes the pressure off. It's a great equalizer. So I like that. No, but that's good because you see things through multiple lenses at once that way. So
yeah.
It's
great and it's awful in so many different things. But you know what? Overall, I think that I would hope that to others that I can be very open and accepting and honest and loving and just do as much as I can to help people.
For what it's worth, that has been my experience with you, as joyous and open and loving and all of that. So I think you're doing a pretty darn good job. Jenn, where are you from? Where are you born and raised?
So I was born and raised in Cypress, California. Orange County,
awesome.
Like 10 minutes from Disneyland. Yes. So Disney is a big part of my life. Until I was about 25. And then I moved to Hawaii for 9 months for a job. Do you want me to keep going with that? And then,
yes, tell everything. So, I want to know everything about you.
So then lived in Hawaii for 9 months on Oahu and then moved back to California and then decided to buy a house in Omaha, Nebraska near some
Was that
family.
For work or just a family thing?
2008 happened.
Oh.
And we just needed a change.
That'll get you.
Yeah. To Nebraska it was. And honestly, we love Nebraska. It's
good.
A great place. And then we decided to move back to California and we're there for another 6 years. And that's where we adopted our daughter, which was awesome. And now we're in Texas.
Huzzah! So, what a wonderful adventure of life you have lived. It seems like a whole bunch of different very different place. I mean, Nebraska versus Hawaii versus California versus Texas. I mean, you're going to some big personality places.
True.
That's pretty. What would you say is the most unexpected thing? Like, as you compare all the places that you've lived, I'm sure, whenever I've moved around or visited places, you go with kind of preconceived notions of like, oh, I bet it's going to be like this, just based on what you think it's going to be, or TV or movies, news,
Yeah.
whatever. Were you particularly surprised living in Hawaii or Nebraska or Texas? Like, has there been anything that was totally unexpected?
I think it's always the people who are unexpected, I guess, because you have this vision of like everyone in Hawaii is going to be like surfer dudes, like chilling, all the
Right.
things. And it is that in a sense, but then it's not. And then
Sure.
you go to like middle America, Nebraska, and you're like, it's going to be like the weirdest podunk people ever. And then you're like, man, I have learned so much about all the different cultures that end up in Omaha, and like a huge refugee population is in Omaha.
Really?
Yeah, that was really shocking to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't
I
have
mean,
guessed.
because you have all these preconceived notions, right?
Sure.
And then like living in
I just sort of
Texas,
think of Nebraska as like a nothing state.
I know the
Like, it's just,
flyover state,
yeah,
right?
it's in the middle of nowhere. You drive through it. There's lots of corn, like
Right.
Nebraska,
But like because I think they only have like certain things, like they have just the Huskers and University of Nebraska football. It's like everybody surrounds themselves with that. And like that's a connection that everyone can have. So if you're wearing like a
Interesting.
Nebraska Husker shirt, it's like, hey, did you see the game? And like now you're family.
I love that.
It's awesome. It's a great state.
I
And then
love that.
you have this idea that they're going to be all cowboys and trucks and like, boots. And
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah. Texas.
Yeah. And I mean, I haven't seen one.
Really?
Unless I go to like specific places.
Sure.
Where, like Fort Worth, where you would expect like as you're watching the Longhorns run down,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But
Right.
I mean, in our town, like, I mean, my neighbors, there's all different cultures.
That's great.
Yeah, it's not like the Texas mindset. It's
Right.
It's great. So
Cool.
I love it.
I love that for you. How cool is that? Very, very cool. Okay, so I know you personally, so I know you're a very crafty person. So will you give us a bit of an overview of some of the crafts that you do and tell us kind of what draws you to them, how long you've been doing them? I know you've got a stash of fabric for quilting.
I do. I think in the heart of my hearts, I'm a quilter.
Yes.
I used to have this saying on my wall that said like stitched together in imperfect stitches of the heart. And I was like, oh, it's so much what quilting is about, is you're like putting together different kinds of fabrics and textures and all those things. And so I think to my core, I'm probably a quilter, but I'm a cattywampus quilter because I don't know how to do it. And I've taught myself, and I have one of my best friends is a designer, and she's like, here. And I'm like,
I love that though. I mean, that's what Stitch People is, right? Like I always tell people, like, I'm kind of self-taught, and you got to just do what makes you happy and figure it out and make it work. So I love that you're self-taught as a quilter. Did you teach yourself from scratch, or did you learn kind of initially from someone?
So my grandma initially taught me how to make a dress out of like the ugliest fabric ever. When I was like 10 years old, I was like, I want to learn how to sew and make a dress. And so she taught me how to cut it all out and do the whole thing. And then my dad, for Christmas one year, bought me a sewing machine off of the Walmart like Black Friday sale, which
awesome.
He never goes shopping on Black Friday. So it was like truly an act of love. For that. And I had that Brothers sewing machine probably for 20 something years. Wow. In fact, I just got rid of it because it was like so bad. But I mean, it was awesome. It worked.
A workhorse will last a long time.
Yeah. And then from making that initial dress, I moved into making Halloween costumes, which I really
cool. Like for
And
yourself, for other people, for nieces and
it was for like
nephews?
for me and my friends in
Cool.
college.
I love that. I love it.
And then that's when I kind of moved into quilting because I was like, this is like great that I can like sew all these things and then give them away.
Yeah.
Which is nice. But I don't have a quilt that I've finished for myself, which is really interesting.
What?
I know. I
You
always
should. You should. Okay, but we have to rewind really quick. What Halloween costumes are you most proud of? Any particular standouts?
Yes. So one year, a whole bunch of my college friends, we went to Disneyland every day in October. And so we decided to like dress up as Disney characters.
What?
And I made all of our costumes, and my friend and I went as like Renaissance girls. So we weren't really Disney characters, but it was like the cool thing to do. And then I made my friend's Fantasia Mickey costume. And that by far is probably my favorite costume of all time.
That's like the robe with the hat and the
yeah. Yeah. And he walked around in tights all day at Disneyland. It was hilarious. It was the best.
Did he have brooms?
Yes.
Amazing.
Well, we made like this little one because they won't let you like take it. So, but it was
They're
fun.
weird about props.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's great.
So quilting, costume making, and then I'm really into like vinyl t-shirts.
Yeah.
I do a lot of silhouette.
Silhouette. Okay, you've got a silhouette. When did you get that?
My sister-in-law bought me one like maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I'm one of those people where like, I wanted this thing for so long.
I love it.
In my like wish list. And I was like, I just can't spend that money. It's too much. And then one Christmas, she just like gave it to me and I like hugged it. And then I didn't open it for a year and a half. It like sat in the box for the
Why?
and she was like, are you ever going to open that thing? I'm like, I'm just so nervous.
Oh.
And then once I opened
what about it made you nervous?
I don't know.
Isn't that funny? How interesting. Like we just talk ourselves out of things. Was it the using of it that made you nervous, or were you nervous that like once you started, like you'd get like addicted and you didn't want to get like sucked into a crafting rabbit hole?
No, I think it was like, it was for so long. I didn't want to buy it for myself because I was afraid of the expense.
Sure.
And so then when I got it, it was like, where do I start?
Just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll be like, here's a fun story.
I love it. I love a fun story. Tell me all the fun stories.
This is like totally my personality. So when Joann's first opened, when Joann's like first came to California, they had like little small shops, which was just like little tiny craft items.
Fascinating. Okay.
They weren't as big as they are now.
Sure.
And so they opened up a Joann's, etc., out in like the IE from California. So I was in Orange County and they were in the Inland Empire, which is like an hour and a half away.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to drive there. It's be awesome. Like all the things I'm going to get. Right. And I walk in the store and I'm like, and I didn't buy a single thing, Lizzy. Because I was just so like overwhelmed by it all. And you know me enough to know that I'm like, oh my gosh.
That warms my heart and breaks my heart simultaneously.
But now it's like, I kind of see that in my life. Like I get so excited about something and then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's actually here.
Right.
What do I do now? I don't know.
Oh gosh, like the anticipation is paralyzing.
And then wanting to like make it perfect and
oh gosh, yeah.
The fear of like not knowing that I'm gonna mess up. Right. And then once you like make something and you're like, oh, that's not too bad. And then you're like messing up left and right from there. Like, oh, whatever. What was I so afraid of?
What's that say? You've got to be you got to be a beginner before you're an expert, right?
True.
But we get so used to being good at what we're good at and we don't push ourselves and we don't try new things as adults, like as frequently as we used to. Like when you're a kid, I was thinking about it the other day. Every year you're thrown into like a new class in public school with a new teacher. You're learning new things in middle school and high school. Like every hour on the hour, you're in a new subject, you're in a new class, like, and then it stops.
Yeah.
If you go to college, it keeps going for a few more years, but then even then it stops. And like, once you have kids, once you have a job, like people will work the same job for years and it's like the similar skill set,
Right.
seasons go on repeat. Oh, it's our heavy season again. It's our light season again. Like, and you just don't push yourself, and like growth happens outside of the comfort zone. So, but it becomes so foreign to us.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Ah, well, I wish I could go back to past Jen and give her a big hug and load her cart full of all the crafts at
I
the
know.
Joann Fabrics an hour away.
I know. And I
That's
think I went there
great
like 2 or
story.
3 more times and still like could not buy anything. But that's
It's a
okay.
shame.
Now they have all my money. So
Great. Yeah,
it's fine.
just take it. Just take all the money, Joanne.
Yeah, it's fine.
I love it. Oh, that's so fun. Okay, so you're a diehard quilter. I love that. Tell me about cross stitching. When did you learn to cross stitch?
I was actually thinking, like, I've heard your story so many times, and I'm like, did my grandma teach me? Or did I learn from a friend? Or did I teach myself? And I kind of remember my grandma teaching me a little bit, but I don't think I ever finished a cross stitch until like one of these guys back there.
And boy, have you finished them. They're great. They're beautiful.
Now I'm like on a roll.
Yeah, you're a stitching maven now. It's funny. I think cross stitching is definitely one of those crafts that it's easy. It's a very portable craft. So I think a lot of people saw their mothers or grandmothers, or I guess fathers or grandfathers, but most people it's grandmothers, working on something,
right?
Because grandma brought it along, or they're at grandma's house and she's just keeping her hands busy. So I think it's a very easy craft to get curious about as a kid. Like, what you doing? And I think a lot of people have, if they weren't, if grandma didn't sit them down to teach them, then it was a matter of like, what you doing, grandma, and a little explanation. You know what I mean? That's like, oh, this is what this is, and this is how you do it. So, yeah, I think it's certainly probably a grandma infused scenario.
Sure. I mean, I remember like my grandma having Christmas tree ornaments that were like the plastic yarn ornaments that were probably.
Oh yeah. My grandma did those too.
Right, and I don't know that they were cross stitched or just like looped through, maybe. I don't know, but I remember seeing those and then going.
It's like little half stitches.
Yeah, right.
Like the diagonals on the plastic.
Right.
What is that called? There's a name for it. I should know.
So I remember those, and then I remember going to the craft store and seeing like the Christmas stockings. Like those are very much in my memory of like, oh, I went to do the Christmas stockings because I love Christmas.
Yes,
but I still have
Christmas crafts.
I love them all. I love them.
My grandma made Christmas stockings for me and my sister. Luckily, I mean, like, there's just the two of us. So I don't envy the grandmothers who have, like 6 or 10 or 20 grandkids. Because my grandma was able to do some crafty things for us. And they took a little bit of time. But since there's only two of us, you could do that's the thing is the cross stitch stockings look so beautiful, but they are so stinking time consuming.
So beautiful. I mean, the same thing
magical.
with like baby announcements, right? Like, I remember going to my friends' houses and they would have like these beautiful baby announcements that their moms or their grandmas made. And my grandma has like 52 grandkids. Like, there's no way.
Nope. No, thank you. Nay.
No, right?
Nay to 52 birth announcements. I will not. I can't even fathom it.
No, and
it's too much.
Some of the cross stitches take, like the stockings, I just can't. Oh, look!
I have a little nubby coming to say hi.
Hi, Nubby. Oh, he's so cute.
Okay, so let me think. I'm just gonna reference my questions here. So how long have you been doing Stitch People portraits in particular? When was your first Stitch People portrait?
My first Stitch People portrait was June.
And was that the stocking one? Or was that just a practice one?
Yeah, that was a stock. I can't remember if I did this one while you were doing the Michaels one.
The Sherlock Holmes. That's a good pattern. I love that little pattern. I think it's so fun.
I mean, it's a really great. I'm like,
very proud of that
my
one.
Nails. But it's so cute. And I learned so much on this pattern.
Good.
but then it like helped me to like try other things too.
Yeah.
But I think the stocking one was the stocking pattern is Gwenny, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it was the first time I had like designed a Stitch People
Yeah.
person
Right.
related to a picture. So yeah,
And like
that's
someone that means something to you.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Which
the
I think
first.
is different. Like it makes it feel different. It's one thing to do, you know, Pride and Prejudice or,
Right.
you know, something like that. But to do, you know, somebody you love and somebody who's
Right.
special to you, and you get to think about them as you design it and stitch it and think about
Right.
memories together.
And like the hard part is I think sometimes, and I know like our customers feel this way too. Like I sometimes I feel like you don't know how much we agree, like we feel the same way, right? Like
Right.
when I get the DIY book, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed, but this is so awesome.
Right.
All the
Yeah.
things. And then I was like, I just gotta dive in.
Yeah.
And then made it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not too bad. And stitch it up. And I'm like, that was fast. Like, how many more can I do? The other day I was thinking, could I make one for my grandma for Christmas of all of her kids? And then I'm like, like what? I don't have time.
I'm like, end of October. Get going, Jen. Get going.
And isn't that when people's like crafters start Christmas too for their family? Like,
oh yeah. Well, September, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, we're already getting too close to Christmas for starting a project now, especially of all the grandkids. That's intense.
Right? Yeah. So I think probably the stocking and the Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Then I moved on to like Freddie Mercury, which
Freddie
I'm so excited
Mercury.
about.
I love him. That was such a fun little.
So fun.
For those of you who don't know, I guess this could be a fun podcast exclusive story. So this was for the Needlework Expo, right?
Yes.
Online.
Yes.
And it's like a digital conference basically. And you have like a little digital booth. And Jen was manning our digital booth and just making relationships with Stitch store owners, you know, and all that. And they will put out a theme each year and encourage designers to create a pattern using that theme and using like a certain color palette of DMC floss colors that they've picked out. And this year's theme was like kooky cats or something.
Meow the merrier.
Yeah, meow the merrier. I was going to say it was a cute alliteration cat theme. It was just a cat theme. So make a pattern about a cat using a certain color palette. And I looked through the colors and I wanted something that was fun and interesting because a lot of Stitch stores are having trouble finding good patterns that appeal to a younger crowd, but aren't like too crass for the shelves, right? Like there's kind of that trend to like snarky Stitch and swear words, whatever. But anyway, so I thought, okay,
which
pop
we
culture,
love, but
it's got its own place. But I can understand why somebody doesn't want to hang it on their shelf at the store.
Right.
So anyway, there was this yellow color was part of that palette, and I was like, well, I know what I'm doing. It's just for some reason it just hit me to do a little the yellow jacket for Freddie Mercury, and I just made him into a cat.
Now he's Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury. And then Jen stitched it right up to test the pattern, and it looks awesome. And
so
the rest
fun.
is history. And hopefully we'll be making a series out of those little. They're like XL Stitch People cat portraits. It's a weird hybrid, but I don't hate it. I'll be honest.
Should we show it a little bit closer?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So
Freddie Mercury. We are the champions. I love it. So yeah, we've got a whole bunch of fun ideas in store. So
all the fun stuff.
I love that.
Stuff is just falling. So
I love it a lot.
So yeah,
this is great. So okay, you started doing Stitch People portraits in June, but I think it's also interesting. Like you mentioned, we often feel similar to the way our customers do. Like you had been working for Stitch People for like 6 or 7 months by then,
right?
And hadn't done a Stitch People portrait, which like A, totally fine, not offended, but B, like just to illustrate that it can take a minute to like jump in even when you're, you know, knees deep in it and passionate about it. And, you know.
Well, and what's even like probably more embarrassing is like you and I have been friends for what, like 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
And literally like the first day I met you, I think we talked about what we did, what we both like our jobs were. And you're like, oh, I have Stitch People. And I was like, Stitch People? That's weird. And then I like looked it up and I think I bought the book like that day. And it like sat, like I read the whole thing. I was like, this is awesome. But I couldn't like, that like anticipation anxiety.
Yeah.
So, I mean, please don't be offended. I really do love them. And
I'm not.
like,
I'm absolutely not. Things happen when they are meant to. That's like my motto. So
now I'm
I'm not offended. Yay! We've got you hooked for life.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm just like looking at my questions over here. Okay. So I know you love to craft. I know you love quilting, but would you say that that's the kind of stuff that like lights you up the most in the world? What, like, if you could do anything in a day, if you could spend a day doing anything you wanted, wherever you wanted, with whoever you wanted, money and, well, no, it's a day. Time is an issue, but not money. Money's no object. Travel's no object. You can teleport yourself anywhere in the blink of an eye. How would you choose to spend that day?
I have this dream with a couple of my friends that we will go to all of the Disney parks around the world.
Oh, that would be awesome.
If that could happen in a day, like
bam, bam, bam. That would be amazing. Bam, bam, bam.
And if I could only pick one.
Yeah. Which one would it be?
It would be Tokyo Disney.
Okay. So review with me. I know we have Disneyland in California, Disney World in Florida, Paris. And then we've got Tokyo Disney and Disney Sea in Japan.
Both in Japan.
And then then I get confused. We've got
Shanghai and Hong Kong.
And that's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And which one's is Hong Kong the new one or is Shanghai the new one?
Shanghai is the new one.
Because I've heard that's very high tech and very cool.
Very high tech.
And have you been to the Tokyo or Disney Sea yet? Because I know you have family from Japan, right?
Yep. My grandma is full Japanese and born and raised. My mom was actually born in Japan too. And we still have family over there. And I am dying to go, but just haven't been. But see, when I was a kid, she used to say like Disney, Tokyo, you have to wait 8 hours for one ride. And sometimes I wonder, like, is that real?
I don't even
just telling me so I would stop talking about it. And I kind of feel like it's maybe a combo of both.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I even like, I'm sure things have become more efficient and more expedient, like with technology, but even back then, 8 hours, like maybe once when a new ride opened, because I remember my family visited Disneyland in 1997 or 8. It was months after Indiana Jones had just opened.
I was going to say, was that when Indiana Jones opened?
Yes. And it was new. I mean, brand new, just literally maybe a couple months. And so the line was out. I mean, for those of you who know Disney, the line was the full Indiana Jones queue. And then it was out into Adventureland and like down to where the Aladdin thing used to be. And we waited in the line. But even then, I remember very distinctly that it was like a 3.5 hour wait. And that's all it was for that brand new ride. So I don't know. Maybe she was a kid and waited 3 hours and it felt like 8 hours.
Maybe. I think she just wanted me to stop talking about it.
That's so funny.
Because I could probably see myself as kind of annoying.
Just pestering her.
When I was
we go to Disney Tokyo.
I know. When I was a kid, they used to when you talk about kids and you don't want them to know.
Right. Yeah.
You spell it out or whatever. Well, when I learned how to spell, then that stopped.
Of course.
It used to be like, oh, we're going to take Yoki Mimi to blah, 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 blah. And like, it wasn't for a really long time that I realized like Yoki Mimi was me. Like they were referring to me as Yoki Mimi. And then I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, big ears, because you're always listening to everything we say. And I have really small ears.
So it wasn't literal. Oh my goodness. That's so funny.
The nickname.
Just always listening. That's funny. Nothing gets past Yoki Mimi.
Yoki Mimi.
Well, I've got a new nickname, Jen.
There you go. Always listening.
I'm going to change it in my phone. Jen Yoki Mimi.
That's awesome.
I love it. So it sounds like like being with your friends, being at Disneyland or Disney Tokyo would be like your happiest happy place?
The happiest of
I
happy.
love that. What do you love about Disney? This is a question I love to ask Disney people. Like, because me and Spencer, for those of you who don't know, are kind of Disney people. We love Disneyland, but it's not, a lot of people who don't understand Disneyland or have never been to the parks get it. And so
Yeah.
it's always I always think it's a fun subject to explore and to talk about, because I think people go for different reasons and people like it for different
Yeah.
reasons, especially people who are like big fans. So
Yeah.
what is it about the Disney parks that appeal to you? Why do you like them so much?
Well, I mean, so cliche to say like the magic.
Yeah, but
But,
hey.
but I think it is the magic, and it's the magic in the details that make the difference.
Yeah.
Right. So like when they used to have Bugs Land. Did you ever go to
Mhm.
Bugs Land?
I
Right?
loved Bugs Land.
Bugs Land. It was so awesome.
Well, okay, I'll be honest. I had an issue with it's not there anymore, so it's not a spoiler. The spiders moment in the It's a Bug's Life
Oh,
show.
yeah.
There's a scary part where
Well,
spiders come out of the ceiling and they're huge and would get really
yeah.
close to your head, and I was not a huge fan of that.
Uh,
Otherwise, I liked I liked the Bugs Land.
like Bugs Land.
Mhm.
Because I agree. Also, when you got pinched in the back, not
Not
a
okay.
So, but like when you go into Bugs Land, just the way that like the floor would change and you would go down very slightly, the road would go down, and then the trees would get bigger above you, and like all those things just that you wouldn't notice normally when you're just walking through, and then all of a sudden you feel this big in like a huge town, right?
Yeah,
It's all those little details that
right.
just make the difference.
It's
And
the atmosphere. I love that you mentioned the underfoot, because that's something that, so for people who haven't visited the park in Disneyland, like there's Fantasyland and Tomorrowland and Adventureland and the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and Main Street and everything. And everywhere you go in the park, the ground is different. So
yeah,
it might be bricks, it might be cobblestone, it might be concrete, it might be
right.
kind of concrete tiles, like a little bit more flat and gridded. It might be,
Yeah,
and even just the way that it changes, like you mentioned, underfoot, it really it transports you, because you feel like
yeah,
you're walking around a different place.
right. Which I love, like you've heard of grounding, right? To
Hmm.
make sure you're grounding every day, like
Oh
touch
yeah.
the ground. And like I love that like vision of Disney. Like when you walk in and you hit certain parts, like you know exactly where you are.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I love that. I love the smells of Disney.
Hmm.
I love the music. Everywhere you
Hmm.
walk is like different music. I just,
And there's
it's
sound
those
effects
things.
too, where it's not only music, but like ambient sound and wildlife
Yeah.
sounds, and
Yeah.
they think of everything.
And I've
It's
always
immersive.
loved it. Yeah. And I've always loved to watch the magic on people's faces
Yeah.
and all the things that happen. Like, even at the end of the day, when there's kids crying and screaming and the parents are exhausted
Yeah.
and like regretting all the money they just spent, like those times, it's like, it's the best when you're like, yeah, but isn't it fun? But
It's
it's just,
almost like an airport. Like when you
yeah,
watch people reunite in an airport and you get these little glimpses of like happy
right.
family moments, but it's like
Yeah,
all day in the park is
right.
like that.
Yeah. Like Love Actually, you've seen that movie.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
At the beginning, he like talks about like in the airport, like it's
Oh
always like
yeah.
full of love,
That's
and
right.
like all the calls that happened during 9/11, it was to share love. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what life is about, right? Just
Mhm.
loving each other, making the
Yeah.
best of it,
And it's fun to
grounding in the different
Yes.
areas.
And it's fun to be in a place where like the sole purpose is like having a fun time with your loved ones.
Yeah.
That's why
Right.
everybody's there. Is to just have a
Yeah.
good time together. That's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. It's the best.
Yeah. That's
So
great. I
yeah.
love that. I love them.
Yeah.
So magic to you is an attention to detail
True.
and an immersive quality.
Yeah.
I love that.
The same thing I like about people and my friends.
Oh, hey. Hardly incidentally. That's great. I love that.
Yeah. What
Cool.
about you?
What about me?
I mean, can we turn the interview around?
Sure. What do you
What
want to know?
what do you love most about Disney?
Honestly, it's kind of what you just touched on. I love to perform. I love to act. And one thing that appeals to me about being an actor is portraying, like, I love the challenge of living life in someone else's shoes, and not just like, because there's varying degrees of empathy, right? Where if you see somebody sitting alone by themselves crying, okay, like you're at a food court or something, it's easy to look over there and be like, oh shoot, like that stinks.
Right.
Because you can think of if I, Lizzy, were sitting by myself at the food court crying, I would feel bad with that. I don't know why I thought of that very lonely and sad scenario, but still, you kind of put yourself in their shoes. But with acting, it's not about how Lizzy would feel in that moment. Like if that were happening to me, it's about a complete perspective change about like, no, my point of view in the world is different. I'm not a happy, bubbly, optimistic person. I might be an agitated, grumpy person, or I might be a totally apathetic, neutral person. You know, it's about being something so entirely different and forcing your worldview to adjust accordingly in a way that it honestly portrays another person. And I find that I succeed best at portraying a character when I have, the hair, the costume, and when I'm on a stage or on a set, because then I can really live in the bones of a different person and in their world. And Disneyland does that. Because it is so immersive and so thorough. I don't go for like the rides, and I love Disney movies, but like I don't go for the characters. But I go because it's just fun to be so instantly transported to somewhere else. Like I remember when I first went through Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which is a Star Wars theme part of the park that only opened a couple years ago. I was by myself and walking through the park. Don't worry, Spencer had given me his green light that it was okay for me to go by myself. Because I didn't want him to miss out. And he was like, are you kidding? Just go. And I started walking differently. Like I found like my posture changed, my walk changed. I was like, I felt legit. I was like, oh shoot. I was like, I am a part of the resistance army. Like I need to go find my little TIE fighter and like start getting my gear. I'm going like you feel like a different, I don't know. And I think that's an important thing in life, to like shake up your perspective. And obviously like, sure, I could go to Chicago or Seattle or New York, or, I could visit Omaha. I could go to a new place and do the same thing. Sure. But what's fun about Disneyland is that it's that shift in perspective, but sort of in a theatrical way, because it's all, make believe, it's fantasy. And that's always good for the soul too. But it's clean and happy, and it smells good, and it's, sounds good. It's like the highlight reel of transporting yourself to another place. So anyway, I feel like I've blabbed for a long time about it, but I just love to be transported. It's really not about like the theme park and Mickey Mouse. It's just about, and like you said, people watching. Like Spence and I don't have kids, and so it's fun to watch people with their kids and watch the kids meet the characters and be so happy and remember what it was like to be that believing and hopeful, and to see people taking photos. Like my favorite thing to do, I'm a pro at intercepting like family selfies, or where you can clearly see that like one member of the family is taking a photo of everybody else. And I'm always like, hey there, let me take a photo for you.
Like my favorite job while we're there.
Oh yeah, I love it. And I'm always inserting myself, and I know that I'm doing it, but just the look of joy on people's faces, like, oh really, thank you so much. And I go above and beyond. Like I'm taking landscape, portrait, close, up, down. I'm getting the castle. I'm making sure nothing's poking out of anybody's heads or anything. Like I go all out. But like I just love to help, because people deserve to have that memory and I'm have sure everybody in the photo too. So
I'm sure you have taken many Christmas cards for people.
Oh, I hope so. Use it for a Christmas card. I love it. I love memory making, and I love quality time with the people I care about. And that's a really fun place for that to happen. So
agree.
Yeah. Yay. And the food is fantastic.
Not gonna lie.
I know.
It is.
I could talk Disney all day. So tell me about this. You have had a cool breadth and depth of like professional experience. You have had a roller coaster of an experience with you adopted Gwenny, your daughter, and you fostered kids, and you've had, so many ups and downs. You've lived in California, Texas, Omaha, Hawaii.
Mhm.
So you've got a very cool, I think, very interesting perspective of the world, as we all do. Everybody's unique.
Yeah.
With all of that in your life, what does the word success mean to you? Like, is
Mhm.
there a point at which you will say, wow, I've really made it? Like, I've achieved the thing. I've done what I set out to do. Have you already hit that point? Do you anticipate that point? Does that look like anything specific? Or is success a little more amorphous than achieving a goal? I love to know what people's kind of
Yeah.
definition and thoughts about success is, because that's so different for everybody.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I don't know, because I think there's like different facets of life and different sizes of success, right?
Yeah.
So like family Jen would probably not look at success until like, I don't know, until like your last day, when you're like, look back and see like, who's around you, your family,
Yeah.
your friends, what like Gwenny's done with her life. Hopefully we'll adopt more children, like, what success they have to then be successful adults that contribute to the world
Yeah.
in such a positive light, but then also like their kids and their kid, like I think that is the sense of success as a human, right?
Sure.
To be able to look at that. But then I also feel like as a business person, I like, you're so inspiring in so many ways, Lizzy. And I'm not just saying that because I love you as my friend, but like as a boss, like it like there is nothing you touch that doesn't like turn to gold. Like I think I tell you that
That's
all the
very
time.
nice.
And you do exactly that. Like it's very nice.
Oh.
but
Well,
but
I don't know.
what are you supposed to say?
Double chin time.
But I think in that sense, like for me, success as a business person is I'm not the Lizzy in the front, like making all the things and like, like I'm not that, but I'm really good at like supporting that.
Mm,
And so like and I think that there's different levels of every business, right?
sure.
Like I'm only a good leader for the people above me and below me. Like
Sure.
how great they are helps me, and how great the people above me are uplifts me, right? It's like a whole like build up program. And so
I
for
love that.
me, it's like one of those things where like if you do all the things like and I'm there like helping along, then like that's successful to me too, right?
I love that you're
And it's
able to find success like as a team.
yeah, like I would say that in every, like I've had a lot of career paths. Like sometimes I'm like, I can't even tell you how I got here, because there's been like none of it makes any sense. But at the same time, it's led me to each job to be
Right.
successful for whatever that point is. But it's always been a place where like I've been able to work better as a team than by myself.
Sure.
I'm not that. And I'm an only child, which is probably like where that comes from, where I think some people think only children are probably more like type A, like direct. And I am very type A in a sense. But at the same time, I think that like I've always wanted that like connection to then work as
Yeah.
a team helps to grow everything together in the
Right.
overall scheme of things. So
I love that.
no, if that
Well, and
makes
that's one thing that I have always been impressed with you is the way that you have talked about past jobs and past experiences. It's always with this reflection of like maximizing and magnifying what you're there to do. Like everybody's a human, and like every job has its frustrations, and like
yeah.
we've talked about like the good, the bad, and the ugly of things gone by.
Right.
And at the same time, I think I've always really admired that that in spite of, you know, a hard personality, or in spite of someone who's a legitimate obstacle because of their own, you know, what insecurities, whatever they're working on, or
Yeah.
because despite all of these things, you're always able to carve out this little pathway of like, well, I'm here to do this. And so I'm going to do this as best as I can to the best of my ability, so that like, not that you've ever said this, but I always get the sense that there's this idea of like, when it's time for you to go on to the next thing, like no one could look back and say you didn't do what you came there to do, right? Like
Yeah.
that you're there, you're solid, you do it well, you do it better than anybody else would have, and you're really good at that notion of like leaving a thing better than you found it,
Like
right?
the Girl Scout way.
Yeah, right. Like that's, I mean, I was raised that way, that like
Yeah.
you know, if you are at someone's house, like you help clean up your messes and you help do the things, like you leave a place better than you found it. And it seems like that's something that's important to you as well. And I think you're really good at.
You're just so nice. Stop
But
it.
it's the truth. See, it's
Well,
that double
thank
chin
you.
thing. But it's the truth.
Yeah, thank you. I mean,
So-
I try, and you know, I don't think anyone is successful by themselves. It takes a lot of work
Right.
on everything, on
Right.
every level, and a lot of luck, I think, sometimes too.
Oh yeah.
And I've been really
Right
lucky.
timing.
Yeah, I've been really lucky with people who have given me the chance to succeed and to grow. And, you know, I'm grateful for that. Like
Yeah.
every person touches you and changes you and helps you grow. And you know, take the good and leave the bad.
Yeah.
That's all
Totally.
you can do in life.
Totally. Tell me this. You were just talking about like learning and growing. What do you like to learn about? Like, is there any particular kinds of subjects that like you just get really geeky about, really nerdy about, that like, you know, that you will get down a rabbit hole if you start thinking about XYZ or whatever?
I mean, that's really hard to say because I love to dig in deep on all the things that you're not supposed to dig in deep about, right?
Oh, I like that.
Like I love to, well, I don't know. I love to dig in deep on like politics,
Ooh.
religion, and like essentially like family dynamics, like
yeah.
all
Like
those
family
things.
relationships.
Yeah, and yeah, for sure. Because to me, like that's where it all starts, right? Like I think everybody comes to this earth with like good.
Yeah.
To be good, right? Everyone is born good. And then like things happen to them. And at what point did somebody go from here to there, right? Like how did that work? So that's like family dynamic. I'm always like, tell me more. But then like
I love that.
Politics and religion is the same thing. Like there are so many different opinions. And I am like, I have my own opinions, but tell me more. Like, tell me why you have that opinion and where did it come from? And why did this happen? Oh, have you thought about this? Like, I love to just dive in and learn all the things on all levels.
Can confirm.
Yeah.
I'm just, don't make that face. Some of our best discussions have been, about like religion and about politics and about sharing views and ideas. And I will say, I truly, and I to my dying day, I will say it. I have found that you are one of like the most open-hearted and curious and like least judgmental people. Because like there are definitely things that you and I are similar on, and there are things that you and I like don't like. We agree to disagree in very like healthy ways, and yet I have never felt like any judgment or anything. It's always just, and I think because I'm very similar, I just get really curious, and it's like I may not agree with you, but I'm curious like how you got from A to Z and how I only got from A to W, you know, like why, what happened that we have different conclusions about this or that. And so anyway, I can confirm that you're not one of these like, oh, I just love digging into subjects. Like, no, you really do. And you're very good at it and very good at being curious and respectful. I think and I just have to like say it because I'm your friend and I love you. But it's just something I think the world could use a lot more of, is just like patient and genuine curiosity where I could share an opinion and you're not taking it as a personal attack on like your own opinion.
No. And it's a lot of empathy too, right? To understand. And I think it's like to honestly, like all three of those things, it's to understand the person that you're talking to and what is their makeup and why.
Yeah.
Like, because I think we're connected in more ways than we want to admit sometimes. And we just have to find what those likenesses are and where that is, because we all have hearts.
Yeah.
We all have purple blood. Like, it's one of those things. And I don't know. I love all of it. I love all of the stories. It's really stories, right?
Yeah, right.
Of it all. So anyway.
Why do you think people, I think that's interesting what you just said, that we're connected in more ways than sometimes we want to admit. Why do you think that is?
I think,
like, why, I guess the question I mean is like, why don't we want to admit that we're connected sometimes? You know what I mean? Because I think you're right. I think there's sometimes a resistance to commonalities, and it baffles me personally.
Yeah. You know, I grew up in the 90s, right? Like, I was born in 81, like I'm 40 at this point, like almost over 40. Anyway, whatever. But like, you know, the 80s and 90s were a different time. And I think it was a huge growing time. Like, I remember my first and second grade teachers were both Black women, and they were amazing women. And I went to school in like a highly Asian population. And so it was just a weird dynamic, I guess you would say, like, but at the same time, like, I didn't know any better and I loved it, but they were amazing women. And I remember learning about like Martin Luther King during January, right? Martin Luther King Day, and like them specifically focusing on segregation and stereotypes. And I remember thinking about stereotypes as very much like, the only way you have stereotypes is by not getting to know someone on a deeper level. And stereotypes are set up not because of, maybe that's the group that people are around, right? But you learn a stereotype not because of your own interaction with someone, but because somebody or something told you that was what was going to happen.
And you just like accept it.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, during that time was when like kids TV started a lot, like we had a lot of divorced parents happening, like, you know, all of those things where like TV became more involved in a kid's life than it had been in the past. And so everything that we learned was from TV and music and all of those things. And so I think that's where like that comes from, that we're like, oh, that's scary. We can't go in. We like, I'm not sure I'm supposed to like you. And then you're like, wait, but them and you is different. And I feel like, no, you and them is the same. Right. So let's figure that out. So I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like, I don't like stereotypes. And
it reminds me of that, going back to the Disney train. There's nuggets of gold, I tell you, in Beauty and the Beast. There's the lyrics when they're going to like kill the beast in the castle. Yeah. And they sing, "We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us." Yeah. And like, I've always thought, like, what a profound line for a children's movie. Yeah. But that's what it comes down to, right? Like, just, you've been told somebody's different, or you perceive somebody as different for some reason. And so you don't like it, and it scares you. Right. Because you're told to be afraid of it, you know? Right.
So 2 songs that I like really love, and I think of all the time when it comes to that too, is by In Vogue, called Free Your Mind, because it's literally the best song on the planet. But it's very specific about like all those things, like, don't have any stereotypes. It's not okay. Like, get to know me as a person, no matter what I look like, what I dress, how much money I spend, like, I could be all the same that you are. Right. Yeah. But then the other one I was just reading about today, as it's Halloween time, was the Flying Purple People Eater. You know that song? No. Right? You don't know the One-Eyed One-Horned Flying Purple People Eater?
No.
Lizzy, no. I feel like I have like failed you as a friend. What? OMG. I'm going to send it to you. But it talks about like,
in my mind's eye, I'm just picturing that children's book with the boy and his little purple crayon.
Maybe.
That's all I
can think of. But it's a song that comes around on Halloween, and I remember singing it like as a kid. But it's like one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. He wears short shorts, flying purple people eater. And then like it's about, I don't know. Somebody posted it today. Like, I know it's so crazy, but it was like, is it a one-eyed monster that's purple and eats people? Or is it a monster that eats purple people?
Oh.
And I was like, oh, I've never really thought about that, but I actually think it's a purple monster that eats purple people. So anyway, I was reading about it more, and this one lady said, what it is it basically shows you that here is this is so funny. Here is a purple monster that flies out of the sky and is like, I'm going to eat purple people. And the kid who's singing about it is like afraid because he thinks he's going to eat him. Right. But then the purple people eater is like, I don't really want to eat purple people. I want to like join a rock band.
Okay.
So it's like, you can't be, you're probably going to edit all this out. So you can't be like scared of something when you don't really know.
You don't even know what it is.
Do something totally different. And so now he has a rock band and he's like, awesome sauce. And I was thinking like, isn't that what the world is? Like,
yeah.
Don't be scared of the purple people eater. He really just wants to be.
He just wants to be in a rock band.
Anyway, I'm going to send you the song, and now
I will listen. I don't know that I've ever heard it.
Recorder thing.
I feel like I've missed out on a whole portion of life. This is amazing.
It's from the 50s, so I don't know.
love it. The 50s were a crazy time. I mean, you think about like all the Christmas songs, oh man, Frosty. Wow, there's a lot going on.
Anyway.
Awesome. Well, Jen, I think we should wrap up this little interview with a rapid fire questioning round. So I'm just going to ask you your favorite things, and you just got to answer with your gut feeling, no forethought. Okay. So this is all going to be, this is probably going to look different from person to person. So with you, I just want to go favorites. And we'll just do like a whole bunch in a row. Okay. You ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. What's your favorite color?
Teal.
What's your favorite food?
Ice cream.
What's your favorite song?
Purple People Eater.
What's your favorite smell?
Ooh, chocolate.
What's your favorite texture to feel?
Dog fur.
Oh, what's your favorite animal?
Oh, elephants.
Ooh, I didn't know that. What's your favorite vacation destination?
Disney World.
And last but not least, what is your favorite flower?
Gerber daisies.
Oh, how happy.
Oh, I know. It's so fun.
I love that. I love favorites. I love favorites because like you said, there's more things that bind us than not. And it's always fun to be like, oh, that's my favorite too.
That's true.
Something in there for everybody.
Yay.
Well, Jen, it was a pleasure to chat with you. It's so fun to kind of like review things I know about you and learn more new things about you. And I hope that any listener of this particular conversation will enjoy knowing you a little better too, because I think you are a sunshine person in this world. And
Aww.
When Jen laughs, the world laughs with her. I love you. Literally have my favorite laugh on the whole planet. Anytime you laugh, I just am filled with so much joy.
You're so kind.
Well, thank you. It's perfect. You just laugh all day, every day together.
So hard.
Wonderful. My friends, isn't Jen just a ray of sunshine? I absolutely adore her and her laugh and her sparkle and zest for life, but most of all, just her extraordinary compassion and empathy. I really think she exudes that so much in her ability to be curious and open and just want to see the best in people and find commonalities. I think the world would be a much better place if everyone could approach things the way Jen does. She's just so impressive. I love you so much, Jen. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of the Stitch People podcast and enjoying conversations with Stitch people like you. We'd, of course, always appreciate if you could take a moment, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, leave us a review. It helps us spread more cross-stitchy sunshine into the world. And if you like this episode or any others in particular, please feel free to share them with friends and family. It may be sort of surrounding the Stitch People community, but as I'm sure you've heard by now, there are many great lessons that we can learn in these episodes that have much more to do, well, that have a lot to do with much more than cross-stitching. There it is. You can check out all that Stitch People has to offer, cross-stitch patterns, books, merch, and more at stitchpeople.com, and connect with us, please, on Instagram and Pinterest. We'd love to see what you're up to. Lastly, I want to thank everyone in the Stitch People community for your support of us and your positive and cooperative encouragement of one another. I also want to thank the incredible Stitch People team for making all the magic happen behind the scenes. Our fully licensed jazzy tunes were created by Jonathan Boyle, and our sound designer, man, the myth, legend, is Brandon Yost. Have a wonderful day, my friends. Happy stitching. The Stitch People podcast is a production of Beanski LLC and Stitch People. Copyright 2022, all rights reserved.